Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you back to today's analysis session of the Hindu newspaper. I hope all your preparation is going well. And thank you so much everyone for joining in right on time for this 10 a.m. live session. As you know, every single day at 10 a.m. we bring this Hindu newspaper analysis for you. The only thing that we want in return for you is to make sure that you do attend these sessions in all seriousness, do subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all the notifications, and also leave the comments about how did you like the session. Also, as you know, at the end of the session, as soon as we end this, we have a live quiz on the Hindu newspaper, the articles that we discussed on our Telegram channel. So right away after you attend this session, you all need to move to our Telegram channel so that you can go ahead and attend that quiz as well. If you have still not joined our Telegram channel, the link for that is given in the description of the video. Now on that note, let's begin. Let's see what are the important newspaper articles from the Hindu newspaper that we have for you today. The first article is again on a topic that has been in the news for some weeks now. That is the confrontation between the governor and the state governments. Now, you might argue, why is it that we have so many articles about the governor, and do we need to read all those articles about governor? Because see, this is a very common problem. If one important news story comes in, we have about 2-3 weeks of editorials just written on that. For example, when you have any confrontation between governor and the chief minister, all those articles are on the governor. When you have some issue between India and China, you have all those articles written on those. The question is, do you need to read all of those? The short answer would be no. You don't need to read all those articles because they are covering the same topic as such. However, there are just a few different types of dimensions given in each article, and we are trying to cover those dimensions here. For example, in this article, the author here says that if you look at how India has progressed since 1980s, the state governments have become more and more empowered. Since the 1980s, the state governments have been given much more powers. For example, with the formation of the local bodies, the panchayats and the municipalities, where the state legislature has been trying to ensure, or where the state legislature has been given the powers to decide how the panchayats and the municipalities will run. There has also been rise of regional parties since the 1980s. Many of the regional parties, in fact, have even been coalition partners at the center. Talk about Trinamool Congress, left parties, there are parties like DMK, AIADMK, all these parties somewhere down the line have been coalition partners at the center. Meaning that in simple terms, the states in India have become more and more empowered since 1980s, and they want more freedom because they play a major role in how the country will run. That is why at the same time, the state governments do not want to be dictated by the governor how the state will run. The office of the governor, unfortunately, has been in the center of controversy for a long time. It is since the beginning of independent India's journey that many state governments, especially when they are ruled by non-BJP parties or non-Congress parties, they don't really like the office of the governor. The question in the entire debate is, does the governor have discretionary powers or not? What about the discretionary powers of the governor? Now, let me remind you very quickly. When Indira Gandhi government was in power, they wanted to curtail the powers of the president. Remember, they introduced the 42nd Amendment Act, the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. In the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, the government of India made it mandatory for the president to abide by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. You would remember that. By 42nd Amendment Act, the government made it mandatory that the president has to abide by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. The maximum that the president can do is that the president can return the advice once. Nothing more than that. However, the interesting part is, when this 42nd Amendment Act was introduced about the president, saying that president would not have discretionary powers, that act did not mention anything about the governor. So while it was very clear for the President of India that President of India would not have any discretionary powers, he would have to abide by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, for the governor it was never clarified. Since it is not clarified for the governor, That is what starts the problem here. The governors say that we can use our own discretionary powers, we are the head of the states. The chief ministers say no, that is not the case. The issue of discretionary powers, or the issue of how much discretionary powers can the governor use, has been at the center of this debate. Be it Tamil Nadu, be it West Bengal, be it Kerala, in all these states the issue is the same. The governor saying that they can use their discretionary powers, while the chief minister saying that you do not have a lot of discretionary powers. Supreme Court also has said many times that governor should not use his discretionary powers unless in exceptional circumstances. Because at the end of the day, in a democratic country, the entire idea of democracy is that the elected government, the government which has been elected by the people, who has come to power by winning the election, that government would have the power. Now just imagine for once, at the center government level, tomorrow, if the president starts saying, no, I will do whatever I want, I will not listen to Prime Minister, do you think the central government would like it? Do you think the Prime Minister would like it if the President starts saying, no, now I will decide which speech to give, I will decide which bill to sign, I will not limit it, or I will not limit anything to what the advice is given? Obviously, the central government, the Prime Minister will not like it. Exactly the same is happening at the state government level. The chief ministers say that we have been elected by the people have chosen us to run the state. Then why is it that we have to listen to the governors? Now, I'm sure all of you have read Indian polity. In Indian polity, you all read about the discretionary powers of the governor. Now, let me first draw a very quick comparison between president and the governor's powers. As per the constitution, president doesn't have any discretionary powers. As per the constitution, president has not been given discretionary powers, but there are certain situations under which the president may act on his own discretion as well. What are those situations? As you know, when there is no clear majority, when no party has got the majority after the elections, the president decides which party to invite first to form the government. When the ruling party has lost the majority in the Lok Sabha, the president can decide president can decide to dismiss the government. So there are certain situations under which the president can have his discretion. But for the governor, the difference is the constitution itself gives certain discretionary powers to the governor. The constitution itself actually says that under certain circumstances, the governor can act on his own. For example, when the governor has to decide which bill do I have to reserve for the president. As you know, there are certain bills that governor may reserve for the president to give his assent. That is a governor's discretion without asking the chief minister. Similarly, if the governor has to send a report to the president recommending the president to impose president's rule, that is also a discretionary power that the governor has been given as per the constitution. Then, the governor also has been given special responsibility in Schedule 5th and 6th areas to take care of these areas, to decide about the development plans of these areas. And the governor can also ask for information from the chief minister. Do remember, these discretions or these discretionary powers for the governor are written in the constitution. On the other hand, for the president of India, no discretionary power is written in the constitution. So in comparison, you can say governor has more discretion than the president. However, the problem starts when the governors start using their discretionary powers beyond these pointers. This is where the governors must stop. As has been said in many cases by the Supreme Court also, that the governor should not act as an agent of the central government. He should act more as a head of the state. This is the comparison between the president and the governor. Before I go on to article number 2 for today's Hindu newspaper, let me take up a few questions that you have. There's a question that I have is, can we say that governor is a neutral constitutional stand? I don't know what you mean by governor is a neutral constitutional stand. Governor is a constitutional position, yes. Neutral or not depends on the working of the governor. The governor is expected to be neutral. Governor is not the representative of the president. Governor is said to be the agent of the central government. Governor plays a dual role as the agent of the central government and also as the head of the state. Then I have a question, can the position of governor be dissolved? It can be dissolved, but only by a constitutional amendment. But if that happens, maybe the Supreme Court does not allow that, saying it is a violation of the basic structure. The Supreme Court will decide that. But the only way it can be dissolved is to amend the constitution. But you don't know if the Supreme Court will allow that or not. Then I have a question, is the governor required or not? It's a pretty deep question, the governor required or not. It's similar to asking, is the president required or not? The president also is required because the sense is that we do not want the leader of the country, we do not want the leader of the country to belong to a political party. With the governor also, the idea is the same. We do not want that the head of the state should belong to a political party. And that is why we do have a governor. But the reality is, even if the governor is not there, nothing really would change. But I do not think we are ready for such a huge change. I do not think the office of the governor will be removed, because understand something. In India, the political parties, when they are in the opposition, they have a very different kind of a view of looking at the governor or the government. When the same political parties come to power at the center, then they have a very different kind of a view. So when they're in the opposition, they want the governor to be removed. When they're in the government, they all want the governors to actually go ahead and have those powers. I don't think any government will go ahead and remove the office of the governor. Anyway, let's go ahead. The second article that I want to discuss from the Hindu newspaper today is about India's problem about urbanization. Now, what is the issue with urbanization? What is this article all about? Let's try and understand. A few months back, in November specifically, the World Bank of India gave a report. The report was focused on India's urban infrastructure problem. All of you know India has an urban infrastructure problem. In simple terms, the problem is, even if you look at some of the most advanced cities of India, or as you say, the big cities, the metro cities of India, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Kolkata, Chennai, all these big cities that you talk about. The reality is, even though these cities have a lot of money, even though they contribute a lot of taxes to the central government, but in reality, even the infrastructure in these cities is not up to the mark. Every few years, whenever you see any monsoon session, in the monsoon, or whenever you see any monsoon season, you will see the roads being flooded, people have such a big problem going to their homes, people in fact lose their lives also, there are vehicles that get stranded, there are potholes that you see everywhere, and this happens even in the national capital and the state capitals across the entire country. Now, that also points out towards the fact that the urban infrastructure in India is just not up to the mark. Even in the most advanced cities of India, you can see wires dangling from the poles, wires just wrapped up one around each other, even in the markets all across the country. Obviously, there has to be much more investment put in the urban infrastructure of India, which has not been done. Now, there are a lot of problems. The problem is very, very simple. For example, today, if I ask you one simple question, the simple question is, if you think that after you graduate from your college, you want a private job and you want a good life, which Indian city would you want to live in? Just a simple question. Which Indian city would you want to live in if you think you will have a good job and a good life? The problem is, ask this question to anyone in India, they will only have 7 to 8 cities. Everyone will say the same. Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, maybe some others, Chennai, Kolkata, maybe Ahmedabad to a certain extent. But you also know that apart from these cities, we do not have a lot of jobs anywhere else. All of us would want to stay in our hometown or would want to stay in some other town. But the reality is, if you look at the job market in India, if you look at which is a city where you can actually get jobs and you can get a good standard of living, you also know there are maximum 8 to 10 cities in India. Now in the chat I'm seeing many other places as well, but you also know in reality the cities that you are telling in the chat, it is very difficult to actually find jobs there. So at the end of the day, just imagine if so many crores and crores of people in India only want to aim for these 8 to 10 cities. Just imagine how much burden will these 8 to 10 cities have. None of the cities that we have in India were made to handle so much population. Because of that, the urban infrastructure is declining. There has not been a lot of investment put into it. The World Bank, in fact, says the Indian government needs to invest $840 billion. $840 billion need to be invested as per the World Bank in order for Indian cities and urban areas to become better. But the problem is we do not have that kind of a money. And that is why every single year, whenever there are rains, whenever there is monsoon, you will see flooding everywhere. Even in the best cities where people have bought homes for crores and crores of rupees. Every single year the government says we are working towards it, but nothing actually changes. Because people are migrating from rural areas, from smaller cities to all these big cities because the jobs are there. So you can't blame the people for that as well. The problem is that we do not have the kind of money that is required for their development. Right now, if you look at the financing of these urban cities, about 48% of their financing comes from central government, 24% comes from state government, only 15% comes from the local government. The World Bank says in order to solve this problem, as per the World Bank, the only solution that we have is there has to be private investment. There has to be private investment. Now, this is easy to say, but in reality, it is not that easy. How many of you have heard the name of a place called Lavasa? Have you heard this name? Lavasa. Anyone who has even heard this name? Some people would have heard this name, some people would not have heard this name. Okay. Now, what was Lavasa, or what is Lavasa? So basically the idea was, because our cities are not that developed, our cities don't have great infrastructure, there was an idea that near Pune, let's build a new city. So a new city had to be built. That was called Labasa, not Labasana. Please, I'm not talking about Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy. I'm talking about Lavasa. It's a different city altogether. So a different city was planned. It was private people who came in, private investment was actually collected, so that a new city was to be built near Pune. A proper city, houses, companies, banks, schools, everything would be there in a very beautiful place. But they had to take so many permissions from the government, one after the other, that even if one minister did not like you or did not get the money that he wanted, he will shut down the entire project. And this is what happened. Entire project, I won't say shut down, but it actually stayed in between. It never got completed. It stayed something in between, and thousands and crores of rupees were spent. I still remember when Lavasa's idea first came into the picture, people were so excited about it. Many people wanted to invest their property there. So the problem here is the private sector also knows that if they invest so much money into such infrastructure projects, they might never get the returns because the government might stop the permission in between. So in the end, no private sector wants to invest so much money in urban infrastructure. So you have to first give confidence to the private sector that if you invest, don't worry, the government will stand with you. And it is not just the World Bank. Many Indian government reports have also said that we need many crores and crores of rupees for urban development in India. For example, there was an Ahluwalia report that said by 2030, 39.2 lakh crore rupees are required just for urban infrastructure in India, because our cities have so much burden right now of so many people coming in. Now, this is why the government has started some initiatives. For example, as you know, the government has started the Smart Cities initiative, the Smart City program. I hope all of you know about the Smart City program. The Smart City program is simple. The government of India wants so that many people just find jobs in their own cities, rather than actually going ahead and all of them assembling in 8 to 10 cities. We should have 50 to 100 cities across the country which has good jobs, which has good infrastructure, so that people don't migrate from one place to other. This will stop population concentration also. This will not put so much infrastructure on the urban cities as well. That was the entire idea. But again, for Smart City project also, at the end of the need, you need investment. Without investment, you will never be able to do that. And since the government in India doesn't have so much money, it is the private sector that is expected to come up and start investing money. But as I gave an example, to Lavasa, the private sector can only come in, or the private sector can only be expected to play a major role if they are assured that their returns are guaranteed and their investment is safeguarded by the government. The World Bank says that the time is running out for India with the way the population is increasing, with the way that more and more people are trying to join the workforce. They have to make sure that we have enough good cities to live. Now, the World Bank report has these highlights, which I wanted to share with you. The first highlight of the report, as I said, investment required about $840 billion in the next 15 years. The World Bank report also says people living in urban areas will increase considerably. World Bank says by 2036, 40% of India's population will live only in the urban areas, which is again a warning sign that we have to be ready for it. There is slow implementation of government schemes for urban areas, be it the Smart City Mission or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. All of you would have heard slums, right? That there are many slums. Why do the slums develop? Why does Delhi have slums? Why does Mumbai have slums? Why do all these big cities have slums? The entire problem is no one likes to live in a slum. But when you go, for example, to a bigger city, let's say you go and find a job in Delhi or Mumbai, and you don't get a job, or you get a job at a very low salary, you can't afford the high rent, then what will you do? At the end of the day, you will have no other option but to stay in those unorganized colonies which become slums. That leads to all the other kind of problems, health issues, sanitation issues, etc. So slums and all these things, when you look at them, this is all a sign of unplanned migration happening from rural areas to the urban areas. The World Bank report also says that PPP transaction, PPP means public-private partnership. Private sector and the public sector has to work together for urban infrastructure. So government has to give more courage to the private sector to come in and invest. Now let's discuss the next article from page number 7 of the Hindu newspaper today. The next article is about how the Indian universities should collaborate with the global universities. Now, a couple of things here. Number one, whenever you see any global ranking of education institution, be it the Times ranking, the QS World ranking, there are many world rankings that come out. Now, the problem here is, whenever you see these kind of global rankings, usually we do not see any Indian institution there for a lot of issues. There are usually in top 100, top 200, hardly there will be any institution that you would see. Maybe IAS Bangalore, sometimes one or two IITs will be there. But usually you will not see any institution from India in the global rankings. There are various reasons for that as well. Now the government of India, as you know, is also planning to invite foreign institutions to set up their campuses in India. But the author says a better idea would be, rather than this, we should actually ensure that India uses the G20 presidency to have partnership of our institutions with the global institutions. For example, our IIT should participate with institutions in USA. Our IIM should participate with institutions in around the world, so that Indian institutions learn from the global institutions. The government of India has been trying to do something like that as per the national education policy. We are trying to improve our higher education institutions. See, there are so many problems that we have right now in higher education institution. One problem, we don't focus a lot on research because it takes a lot of investment. The government doesn't invest a lot of money except in some colleges like IITs, IIMs. Apart from that, the infrastructure in most of the higher education institutions is not that great. We have so many institutions which are giving substandard education. Even if you pass out of college, you don't get a job. Even when you get a job, the company has to train you on what work you have to do. All of you know that, except IITs, IIMs. A lot of our education institutions are just not being able to produce the kind of experts that we require. This is where, as per the author, we need help in collaborating with the education institutions abroad. The author says there are many problems in India's education system. Number one, the author says India's education system is very, very complex. Complex in the sense that, as you know, in India, we have different research institutions and different institutions for education, etc. Like IITs are not considered research institutions. IISc Bangalore is considered as a research institution where science research will go on. For some reason, we have divided that in some universities there will be research, in some other universities there will be no research, people will just study, take degree and go home. That should not happen. That is not really how the world works. India also does not focus a lot on research in the sense, we don't push or encourage people to take up PhD, to take up research. Since we are so job oriented, you pass out of your college, you do your graduation, then maybe you do your MBA and then you start looking for a job. Because the focus is to start earning as soon as possible rather than making something, rather than researching something, undertaking a PhD. Going through PhD is a tough exercise, it's a long course, it will take a lot of time. So you have to support those people who are undertaking those courses. In some cases, the government does give some stipend, etc., but that is not enough. We have to ensure that the number of PhDs, people taking up research is more. The other part is about investment. See, understand something. Let's assume that let's take an example of the COVID-19 vaccine. The COVID-19 vaccine that most of us got, the Covishield vaccine. The Covishield vaccine was actually developed, though originally it was developed in the Oxford University. So it was Oxford University collaborating with AstraZeneca. They are the ones who came up with it, and then it was produced by Serum Institute, but it was actually developed in Oxford University. Now, Oxford University is a university where research also happens, and you see people also going to study to take their degree from there as well. Now just imagine that. Let's say in the Oxford University or in any university of India, you are asked by the government that make a vaccine for cancer. Okay, let's just take a very random example. The government of India asks an institute that put your mind together, we want a vaccine for cancer. So they start working on it. Now obviously when you are making a vaccine for cancer or something of that sort, you will never be successful in the first attempt, right? So let's assume the government the institute spends 100 crore rupees to try to make a vaccine, but the vaccine fails. This is what happens with research. Now, if the institute tells the government, sir, we failed in the first attempt, please give us 100 crore more, we'll try again. Will the government again give them the money or not? That is a question. Will the government say, okay, no problem, you failed, take the money again, I trust you, you go and do your research again. Will this happen? That is something that is not happening in India. In foreign institutions, Oxford, etc., because they have money, because they have a large budget, they have a lot of people who support them, they can go ahead and they can experiment, they can come up with new things. Even if they fail, they know we don't have a problem. We can do that again. But in India, that is not the case. And if you don't have that backing, you will never be able to invent something new. Because inventing something new will always require you to fail sometimes and you will have to spend money. Do you know Indian businesses, Tata for example, do you know Tata Group is one of the biggest donors to Harvard University? Do you know that? Harvard University, if you go to their campus, has a building called the Tata House. One of their hostels is called the Tata House on the name of the Tata Group because Tata Group donates so much money to Harvard. So there are institutions in India or businesses in India that donate a lot of money to many institutions. They donate some money to India as well, but they donate a lot of money to Harvard, Oxford as well. There's also one very interesting trend. Many of you might not know about this. Let's say there's a very rich person, okay? In India, what happens when a rich person passes away? His property, money, whatever he has, goes to the children. In US, UK, etc., or in many other foreign countries, it is a trend that when someone passes away, in their will, they write that my property should be given to my institution, the institution from where I studied. That is why Harvard, etc., have so much money in the form of donation that they can actually go ahead and they can undertake all these research which India cannot. So a lot of things need to change in the higher education institutions in India. The author says combining and collaborating with global institutions can do that. India is in competition with China. We don't really realize this. We focus more on China's manufacturing, but actually the idea is or the reality is China also has many world-class institutions. We don't really focus on that because we are more focused on Western countries, but China also has some of the best MBA and engineering colleges around the world. When you look at global rankings, China has many colleges and universities in top 100. So they have been doing a great job in investing there as well. Now, there is one very interesting advantage that India has over China or Japan, etc. Do you know India has the largest number of English speaking people in the world? Do you know that? Not US, not UK, not Canada. India has the largest number of English speaking people in the entire world. No other country comes even close. The advantage that India has is our education institutions mostly are in English. So the students that come out of our education institutions, since they have studied mostly in English, they are ready to work almost anywhere in the world. So this is an advantage that India has over countries such as China, and we should take this advantage forward. Unlike China, which can't do that, they focus more on their own local language. This is something that we can actually focus more on. These are some of the issues that our Indian education institution or higher education institutions mainly face. As I told you, commercial exploitation, people open up colleges in your cities also. You would have seen, whichever city you are living in, you would also know some rich people in your city thinks, I want to earn more money, let me open up a college. In smaller cities, so many rich people, builders, etc., who have no relation to education, have opened up their degree colleges so that they can earn more money. And they even get students. It's not that the colleges are empty, because we have such a population, such a high population, that they all get admissions. Education has become more for commercial exploitation. Low level of teaching quality, lack of investment in research, all these issues still remain. As you know, even today, if an Indian student passes out of college, passes out of university, it's very difficult for them to find jobs because they don't have the kind of skills that are required by the industry. Infosys, for example, or TCS, or these kind of companies, you should appreciate them for giving a lot of jobs, but they even hire aeronautical engineers, they hire electrical engineers, civil engineers, everyone, and they just give them training for 6 months and they make them IT engineers. So just imagine, you read something for 4 years and then you are trained for 6 months and then you become an IT engineer all of a sudden. So because the skills that were given to you in institutions were not up to the mark. The next article is on gig and platform worker rights in India as compared to what is happening in China. I'm sure all of you are aware about the concept of gig workers, right? What are gig workers? Gig workers are those who are not full-time employees. They are the ones who actually work on certain platforms like Swiggy, Zomato, delivery guys, Ola, Uber. So they are like, if there is a driver who is driving the Uber cab, he is not an Uber employee. He only gets as much salary, as much commission, depending upon how many rides is he completing. He doesn't get other benefits as such. Similarly with Swiggy, Zomato, etc., they get paid as per the number of deliveries that they have done. They don't get extra benefits as permanent employees do. So they are called gig workers. Now, gig workers obviously demand that they should be given more rights. The gig workers want that they should be treated as permanent employees, but the companies don't do that. In India and in many other countries, gig workers have been protesting. In India, these protests go on for a long time. For example, last year, there was a large protest in Hyderabad by Swiggy workers when the company decided that per order, earlier they used to get 35 rupees. So per delivery, they used to get 35 rupees. Then in Hyderabad, the company said we are bringing it down to 15 only, not even half. From 35 it was brought down to 15. So they all protested. Finally, the government came in between. There was negotiation that happened. But in India, as per the article, the problem with the platform and gig workers is that they are not given their rights. Now, why is the comparison being done with China? China also has similar kind of companies. The good part is, what has happened here is, recently, when we had the COVID-19 lockdown, when everything was closed, the deliveries were still open. Remember when everything was closed, we still had Swiggy, Zomato delivering food. We still have these deliveries open. That made people realize the importance of these gig workers. That was a time when they became frontline workers from invisible workers. That is when people started to realize their importance, but not in India, but in China. As per the author, these delivery workers in China also started to protest. But the difference was in China, when they protested, common people also supported them. Common people in China realized the importance of these gig workers, delivery workers, and they also joined the protest. After a lot of pressure, the companies that they were working for were forced to improve their working condition. The companies were forced to ensure that they get better facilities, they get better money. In India, that is not happening. In India, even today, hardly any one of us would actually give them an extra tip. The tip option that you get on Swiggy and Zomato. Hardly anyone does that. When they go out and protest, hardly anyone would actually notice that they are protesting. Because we want the food at the cheapest price, full stop. Doesn't matter if it is coming out of the pocket of delivery boy or not, but we want it at the cheapest price possible. So the problem is, in India, the common people are not standing in this fight with the gig workers. That is an issue. In China, that has happened, and this is why in China the situation of the delivery workers has improved considerably. This is what the author's point is. The author says that in India we must realize that now our economy is a lot dependent on these delivery guys, and this is not just about Swiggy, Zomato. Count in your Amazon parcel, your Flipkart parcel, your medicine delivery, everything that you now get delivered to your house, all of that is being done by those gig workers. And if their working situation doesn't improve, it will actually harm the economy in the long run. So as per the author, these delivery workers, these gig workers, for them to win the fight, just like they did in China, the common people, the people who are not delivery workers, would also have to join their fight. Rather than thinking, oh, why is my food late for 10 minutes? I will give him 1 star. Rather than that, understand the problem that they are also facing and try to stand up with them as well. Now, gig economy in the past few years has become very, very big. Companies such as all of these companies that you work for, Ola, Uber, Zomato, Swiggy, all these have actually become so big, they give employment to thousands and thousands of people. And gig economy has certain advantages also. Since you are not a permanent employee, you decide how much you want to work. There are so many people who work a normal job from 10 to 6, 10 to 7, and then for 4 or 5 hours in the night, they work as Swiggy delivery boys to have extra income. There are so many people who do that. They deliver food for Zomato, they deliver food for Swiggy after their full-time job. That is allowed because they are not permanent employees. So that is something that has been actually very good for them. They don't want or need any big investment. They just need a two-wheeler. Many of them go with electric bikes, etc. So gig economy has given a lot of employment. Yes, it has its downside also. It has increased traffic violations. They are under a lot of pressure to deliver food as soon as possible. It has had certain bad instances also. But at the end of the day, the gig economy has given a lot of employment. Now the government needs to regulate it. Government needs to make sure that they also get the kind of advantages that people in the organized sector get. That is only how it will in the long run help them out. About 15 million freelancers, means about 1.5 crore people work in the gig economy right now, and this will only increase further in the future. So if these kind of services are hit, we will have a lot of unemployment in India. Before I move on to the next article, if you have any, I'm seeing a lot of questions. I'll just take up a few questions that you have from whatever we have discussed. After that, we'll go on to the next article. Okay. The PDF of this file is given in the description of the video. You can click on the description, read more, and then you'll get a link. You can download this file. Then I have a question, why our government did not expend more amount on research and technology? See, the problem here is government does not have money. India does not have a very large tax base. Most of the people in India avoid paying taxes, avoid paying income taxes. So the government's priorities have to be set straight. every government wants to invest on research and technology, but at the end of the day, it can only come with when all the people pay their taxes, the government has enough revenue in their hands. So all of that is connected to government not having enough tax base. We also spend a lot of money on subsidies, by the way, food subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, etc. So that has to all come down for government to actually have some money. Then I have a question, can privatization of research work out? Privatization of research, not really. See, privatization or private investment only goes in that area where they can expect any return. So in that sense, privatization of research does happen. For example, let's say there is, let's say a private company, let's say Reliance. If Reliance tomorrow starts investing money to have a new system of generating solar energy, it will be very helpful for them. They can sell it at a higher cost. So they do their own research. But when it comes to education institutions, usually you have to have the government only pushing it. The private companies do their own research, they spend their own money for their own development, but they only will spend the money when they see where they will have the profit. I'll take one more question. Why don't students want to go in research field? Just imagine yourself. One option that you have is after class 12th, you do 3 years of graduation and let's say 2 years of MBA. After 5 years, you start earning. Okay. On the other hand, if you go into research, that would be 3 years of graduation, plus you got 2 years of master, plus then you got PhD of, earlier it was MPhil also, but now let's say you go to PhD, etc. You go 4-5 more years. So in the first option, you start earning after 5 years. In second option, you are not earning for 10 years. Would you take the second option or not? Let's imagine that. When you see your friends earning money, going ahead in life, doing great things, and you are just researching, yes, when you're undertaking research, you do get certain stipend, but that is not at par with the salaries that you get. So it's easy to say why people are not undertaking research. It's a long process. You have to sacrifice a lot of things, sacrifice salary, etc. So it's not that easy. Let's go ahead then. The next article that we want to discuss is this report that has come out recently from the Global Environment Change Journal. This is a very interesting report. The report says that India is trying to move from fossil fuels towards a clean energy, but that can be harmful for economy as well. You did not hear that wrong. Let me repeat again. A report has said that India moving towards clean energy from fossil fuel can be harmful for our economy as well. How? Because right now, as per the author, most of our banks, etc., give loan to these fossil fuel companies, oil and gas companies, etc. The banks don't want to give loan to renewable energy because they don't get a lot of investment back. So because if we transition from fossil fuel, if we stop coal and oil, etc., if we move to other sectors only, the banks and the credits that they have given, the loans that they have given, all of that will go to waste. So there is a danger that maybe us moving towards renewable energy from fossil fuel might even have an impact on the economy, might even see the loans not being repaid by these companies, the mineral mining companies, etc. This is what the report says. Now, at the same time, the report also says it is not going to be easy for India to move towards renewable energy. See, switch towards renewable energy requires a lot of money. You also know the government of India announced that we will achieve net zero by 2070. The Prime Minister announced that 2070 will be the year for net zero, right? However, the government also said in order to achieve that, we require at least $1 trillion of investment. $1 trillion means $1,000 billion. That is not going to be easy. We have almost put the responsibility on the developed nations now. India has said we will achieve net zero by 2070, but if you want us to achieve this, you give us the money. Only then it will be possible. This is always going to be very difficult. To achieve net zero, we have to invest a lot more money. And for that money to come in, the developed nations, the World Bank, etc., have to promise us that money. Now, what is India doing in that regard? India is planning to introduce sovereign green bonds also. will expected to launch sovereign green bonds for the first time. RBI expects to launch 5 and 10-year bonds worth 40 billion rupees. What are sovereign green bonds? First, sovereign bonds. Sovereign bonds means bonds issued by the government. Green bond means money raised through those bonds will be used in renewable energy only. So these are sovereign green bonds. You can invest money at certain rate of interest. Let's say you give 1,000 rupees to government. Government says we'll give you 8% interest after these many years. So after some years, you will get your money back with 8% interest as well. These are called sovereign green bonds that the government of India is trying to push. Also, we also have to realize we have talked a lot about solar, green hydrogen, etc. But the reality is still over half of India's energy is still coming from coal only. So just because we hear a lot of news about solar, wind, about all these other kind of renewable energy, let's not assume that we are now a leader in that. The reality is we are still producing more than half of our energy from coal only. So dependence on renewable energy is increasing, but it will still take a long time before we can say that we only depend on renewable sources of energy. That is still going to be a long time away. Only 17.5% banks are lending money to renewable energy, because the banks also are worried would they get their money back or not. Banks are much more comfortable even today investing and lending money to coal or oil, gas, these kind of companies. So for renewable energy, we need money. Let's hope that sovereign green bonds are able to do that. These are the commitments that India had made to achieve the net zero target, as you know. Not just that we will achieve net zero by 2070, we also made commitments about renewable energy. For example, we said that we will achieve ethanol blending target of 20% by 2025 to reduce our petrol consumption. India wants to become a global hub for green hydrogen. We also want to increase our output of renewable energy from nuclear, etc. As I told you, even if you look right now, the energy that we consume, majority of that is still made up of thermal power plants made up of coal. They are still polluting the environment. Yes, we are progressing towards solar, but that is still at a very slow pace. It makes a lot of headlines, but the reality, it is still going on at a slow pace. I have a couple of practice questions for you, and I hope that you will try and write an answer to this, and you will try and use the student portal to give each other feedback as well. First, discuss the various social problems which originated out of the speedy process of urbanization in India. Second, examine the role of gig economy in the process of empowerment of women in India. Try and write these answers. As you know, as soon as the session ends, we have a quiz for you based on these articles only on our Telegram channel. Please do join the channel by clicking on the link given in the description of the video if you have not joined it already. If you have still not subscribed, you can hit the subscribe button. We'll see you soon. Next Hindu Newspaper Analysis will be coming up tomorrow, 10 a.m. live. Do join us for that as well. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day ahead. Jai Hind.